Welcome to the Debka File, the compilation edition, in which we bring you highlights from the past month from Debka File's exclusive news, insight, and analysis in the Middle East. Let's take a look at the headlines. Netanyahu's trip to Oman. Jordan tears up parts of the peace treaty with Israel to strengthen ties with Syria, Turkey, and Qatar. Brutal synagogue massacre killed 11 and injured 6. The impact of the Khashoggi affair on Saudi throne and U.S. ties. Crown Prince's enemies are waiting for Saudi king to move against him. Iran renews arms deliveries to Hezbollah. Israel's non-confrontational stance led to Hamas's ultimatum. A Russian hoax hid a missile ambush lurking for U.S. and Israeli jets over Syria. Putin is twisting Netanyahu's arm before making military deals. Israeli high-tech and Chinese investment. And now to our top headlines. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a rare visit to Oman, where he met with the Sultan of Oman, Saeed Qaboos bin Saeed Al Saeed. The Foreign Minister of Oman, Youssef bin Alawi bin Abdullah, had warm words for the Prime Minister.
أن إسرائيل دولة من دول المنطقة ونحن جميعا ندرك هذا ونعرف هذا والعالم يدرك هذا ويعرف هذا ولكن على الرغم من هذا إسرائيل لا تتعامل في جوارها أو في هذه المنطقة اللي هي منها بنفس الطريقة التي تتعامل الدول الأخرى. ربما حان الوقت الآن أن يكون لإسرائيل ما للدول الأخرى وأن يكون عليها ما على الدول الأخرى. ولذلك على هذا الأساس بدأنا جهداً متواضعاً لنعرض هذه الآراء التي نعتقد أنها أساسية على طرفي الصراع. ولكننا لسنا نحن بوسطاء، لسنا وسطاء في هذه المسألة، ولكننا نقدم التسهيلات والأفكار التي يمكن أن تكون هي فيها شيء من الجديد، هذا الجديد الذي يمكن يساعد الطرفين على أن يكونوا أكثر استعداداً للمضي قدماً معاً.
The invitation by Omani's ruler, as well as the comments by the foreign minister, represent an achievement for Israel in its standing in the Middle East. Even Jordan and Egypt have not matched these words and actions. The Debka File analysis team stated that the Gulf nation of Oman is also important for serving as an informal broker for quiet contacts between the past and present U.S. administrations and Iran. Informal talks in Muscat led to the upfront negotiations, which culminated in Iran and 6 world nations signing a nuclear deal in 2015. The Omani foreign minister suggested a possible expansion of the U.S.-Iranian track to include Israel, which could help pave the way for direct contacts between Washington and Tehran, as well as eventual understandings with Iran in regards to Syria and the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu stated that, quote, the visit is a significant step in implementing the policy that is designed to strengthen ties with the countries of the region, while leveraging Israel's advantages in security, technology, and the economy. Jordan's King Abdullah told Israel that he will not renew the 25-year lease contained in the annexes of the 1994 peace treaty, which his father, King Hussein, signed with former Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. These annexes granted Israel the ownership rights under Jordanian sovereignty in 2 pockets of southern Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded at a memorial ceremony for Yitzhak Rabin.
נכנס השלום בין ישראל לירדן לשנתו ה-25. בהסכם השלום, ירדן שמרה לעצמה את האופציה לקבל לידיה את השטח בנהריים ליד הירדן ואת מובלע צופר בערבה. נמסר לנו היום שהיא מבקשת לממש את האופציה הזאת בשנה ה-25. אנחנו ניכנס איתה למשא ומתן על האפשרות של הערכה של ההסדר הקיים. אבל אין ספק בראייה כוללת שההסכם כולו הוא נכס חשוב ויקר לשתי המדינות.
The announcement came 2 days after an anti-Israel demonstration in Amman. Debka sources reveal that the Jordanian monarch's strategy is to bring his kingdom into alignment with Turkey, Syria, and Qatar. Turkish Prime Minister Omar al-Razaz has been speaking with Turkish ministers to persuade Ankara to stop exporting goods to the Gulf through the Haifa port, and rather to send them through Syria and Jordan. Earlier this month, Jordan reopened its border crossing with Syria, and the king is currently strengthening ties with Syria's Bashar Assad. While Qatar is funding Israeli fuel to the Gaza Strip to aid in tensions, the emirate is also trying to wean Jordan's King Abdullah from his ties with Saudi Arabia and over to Qatar's side of the feud. By going back on the peace treaty with Israel, King Abdullah will gain stronger ties to countries that are hostile to Israel while attempting to alleviate unrest at home over the current failing economy. Following the deadly massacre at the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh that left 11 dead and 6 injured, President Trump ordered for all flags on public buildings to be lowered to half-mast. The shooting by Robert Bowers was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in recent U.S. history and has left the entire nation in shock. The Squirrel Hill Synagogue is 150 years old and a popular conservative place of worship in a mostly Jewish neighborhood. Over the past 2 nights, thousands of people in the community have gathered for an interfaith candlelight ceremony just a few blocks away from the synagogue. The Israeli cabinet commemorated the victims by having a moment of silence at the weekly cabinet meeting yesterday. Prime Minister Netanyahu had this to say.
עם ישראל מתאבל כולו עם משפחות הנרצחים בטבח המזעזע בבית הכנסת עץ החיים בפיטסבורג. בשמי ובשם ממשלת ישראל ובשם עם ישראל. אני שולח את תנחומינו שנשלחים מעומק ליבנו למשפחות ששכלו את יקיריהם. ישראל עומדת בחזית אחת עם הקהילה היהודית בפיטסבורג, עם קהילות הציבור היהודי בארצות הברית, כל הקהילות, וגם עם העם האמריקני. אנחנו עומדים יחד בחזית אחת נגד אנטישמיות ונגד גילויי הברבריות הזאת. אני קורא לעולם כולו להתאחד במאבק באנטישמיות בכל מקום שהוא.
Education Minister Naftali Bennett is in Pittsburgh to console the Jewish people in the community. On Sunday night, the Jerusalem Old City walls lit up with projections of Israeli and U.S. flags to honor the victims. A message read, "We are with you, Pittsburgh." The Jerusalem Development Authority said that the entire city of Jerusalem sends its condolences to the victims' families. The Saudi admission on Saturday that the journalist Jamal Khashoggi died after a fight in the consulate with intelligence agents has left a trail of unrest. 18 Saudis have been arrested in the ongoing investigation, and there are many unanswered questions about the murder, including the fact that no one knows what happened to the body of the dead journalist. The Saudis report that it was given to an unnamed local collaborator who appears to have vanished with the body. World leaders remain skeptical about the findings, including President Trump, who announced that Congress would be involved in the U.S. response.
No, I'm not satisfied until we find the answer, but it was a big first step. It was a good first step, but I want to get to the answer.
Trump continued that abandoning the arms deal with Saudi Arabia, quote, would harm us more than them. King Salman appointed a ministerial committee to restructure the country's General Intelligence Agency and to issue its findings within a month. This step may have been intended as a necessary vote of confidence in Prince Mohammed bin Salman. However, by royal decree, he also got rid of a close associate of the Crown Prince, Deputy Intelligence Chief Ahmed al-Asiri, along with court advisor Saud al-Qahtani and 3 intelligence officers. The Crown Prince's rivals at home, high-ranking princes, army commanders, and intelligence agents have been fighting bin Salman for months. They saw the Khashoggi affair as their chance to bring him down and will be encouraged to increase their efforts as a result of the king getting rid of the Crown Prince's friends in the intelligence service. King Salman has left his opinions open, and his next step will depend on whether the Crown Prince can get back into his role of the kingdom's leader or is beaten by his rivals. One rival who could be in line to replace him is his younger brother, Khalid bin Salman. Khalid was the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. until 2 weeks ago. He returned home and is not expected to go back to his post. As for the fallout in Washington, Trump will be glad to use the Saudi admission and his promise to work with Congress as a means of getting rid of the Khashoggi case before the midterm elections. In the course of his affair, the political foes at home have tried to benefit from his championship of the Saudi kingdom as a major ally and the biggest buyer of U.S. arms, and win him over through the friendship between his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the Saudi crown prince. During the Khashoggi probe, the Trump administration wavered between threatening severe punishment and sanctions on Saudi Arabia and trying to take the heat off Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The White House ultimately decided that they may have to abandon Salman while making every effort to preserve the alliance between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. Trump sent U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Saudi Arabia and Turkey to sort out the facts from fiction, especially as he is the former CIA director and has knowledge of the royal family's inner workings. However, Pompeo denied seeing or hearing any of the recordings and tapes that Turkey claimed as evidence. Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's a close ally of Trump, could also be affected by the accusations against Saudi Arabia and its crown prince. His Middle East strategy has been tied to the Saudi kingdom and his strong rapport with Mohammed bin Salman. After 3 weeks of the scandal surrounding the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman remained relatively unscathed. His father, King Salman, allowed him to continue overseeing the kingdom as he appealed to the entire royal family to close ranks for defending the kingdom and royal house against its enemies and critics. The king and crown prince invited the journalist's son and family to the kingdom to express condolences for their loss. The Khashoggi family accepted the invitation, which no Saudi citizen would dare to refuse. Meanwhile, Washington managed to convince Turkish President Erdogan to tone down the accusations in his speech last Monday. On Thursday, Erdogan declared that he was not planning to file charges of international war crimes at The Hague against Riyadh. So why the holdup in getting to the bottom of this mystery? The investigation has been stalled by the disappearance of Khashoggi's body. In addition, no outsider can determine who's winning the power struggle known to be in force in Riyadh, since the Saudi royal family thrives on secrecy. Last Wednesday, U.S. President Trump speculated that the Saudi crown prince runs the kingdom and therefore bears responsibility for the operation that led to Khashoggi's death. He ultimately decided to deny 21 prominent Saudi officials the right to enter the country. According to Debka sources, the crown prince's rivals are unable to gain traction in the battle to undermine him, so long as King Salman shows no sign of wanting to replace his favored son. It seems that Washington has exhausted its punishment for Riyadh, and the U.S.-Saudi relationship is going back to normal. U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis had this to say at a news conference.
On the killing of Khashoggi, President Trump has said we will get to the bottom of this, and certainly Turkey, with the evidence that they have compiled, will ensure that there is more than one review of what is going on here. And I'm certain the investigation will include the evidence that Turkey has put forward so far. And the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia has assured me that it will be a full investigation just yesterday in Bahrain. We will always deploy troops according to U.S. law. Posse comitatus, part of U.S. law. It's looked at every time we have ever deployed troops. We'll continue the tradition.
Western intelligence sources report that Iran delivered GPS components to Lebanon. Iran's 747 departed from the Tehran International Airport on Tuesday, touched down in Damascus, then continued to Beirut. The GPS devices were sent to manufacture precision-guided weapons in Iranian factories in Lebanon, but the Iranian plane was not intercepted. Debka reports that the Israel Air Force has refrained from flying missions over Syria since the deployment of advanced Russian S-300 air defense systems. On September 17th, the last Israeli airstrike was conducted against Iranian targets in Syria, which resulted in the accidental downing of the Russian Il-20 plane by Syrian missiles. Putin is holding back on setting up a meeting with Netanyahu, who has reiterated the importance of Israeli bombardments of Iranian targets in Syria to Russian Deputy Prime Minister Maxim Akimov. However, Israeli warplanes remained on the ground. Meanwhile, the Russian army deployed 3 battalion sets of S-300 air defense systems in Syria, supported by advanced electronic warfare systems. Debka File military sources state that although Israel's capabilities are advanced, Russia's operational electronic warfare capabilities are an unknown factor in the West. There is still no word from Israel about when operations over Syria will continue. After 50 Palestinian missiles slammed into Israel from Gaza, the IDF spokesman claimed that the pro-Iranian Palestinian Islamic Jihad was responsible for the latest attack and had been ordered by Al-Quds Chief General Qasem Soleimani. The IDF downplayed Hamas's conduct, as they have done over the past 7 months of violence. This kind of whitewash also occurred last Wednesday when heavy missiles were aimed at Beersheba in central Israel, and the IDF spokesman said they were not fired deliberately but set off when struck by lightning. He did not explain how the battery released 2 missiles in different directions. Whether it was a mistake or a cover-up, there were no mistakes in the continued mobs attacking Israeli soldiers on the border fence. Saturday night, Hamas demanded that Israel must give $15 million in cash each month, or else face continued mobs, bombs, incendiary kites, grenades, flammable balloons, and burning tires. Netanyahu did not cave in to Hamas's demands, however, and refused to accept ultimatums. He then warned Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas against carrying out a threat to cut off all funds to Gaza, not just the electricity bills. Debka military sources report that Iran's Al-Quds brigades in Syria and western Iraq are close enough to the northern Syrian town of Masaf to be protected by Russia's newly deployed S-300 air defense missiles. However, if Israel decides to reinvade Syrian skies after more than a month's break, then Iranian-backed forces in the eastern Syrian town of Abu Kamal on the Iraqi border would make a more vulnerable target. Striking there would serve the extra purpose of severing Iran's land bridge from Iraq to Syria. Since the accidental downing of the Il-20 Russian air crash on September 17th, Moscow has been putting together missiles designed to take down the U.S. F-22 and Israeli F-35 stealth planes over Syria. Debka sources say there are 3 steps in this process. First, Moscow told U.S. advisor to Syria, James Jeffrey, that a new Syria deal with Washington was available and welcomed him to Moscow to discuss the new plan. Second, Netanyahu was persuaded not to be alarmed by President Vladimir Putin. These steps were a hoax to distract attention away from the Russian Defense Ministry's assembly of a defense missile system in Syria. Several S-300 batteries were shipped to Syria with the purpose of convincing U.S. and Israeli Air Force commands not to play games with Russia. Russian officials spoke of 4 to 8 S-300 batteries being shipped to Syria, but that was untruthful information. Last Monday, 3 full battalion sets of S-300 systems, each set armed with 300 anti-air missiles with 24 launchers, were delivered. The Russian National Army was compensated with new S-400s as well. A deal between Moscow and Tehran included the transfer of Iranian teams into Syria in exchange for landing rights at West Iranian air bases used for Russian bombers and freight planes bound for Syria. Moscow's plan was created immediately following the Il-20 plane accident, and Putin took advantage of the situation to launch his next strategy in Syria. Until this was revealed, U.S. and Israeli Air Force units were unaware of the advanced capabilities of upgraded Russian weaponry sent to Syria. Whereas the S-300 missiles target high-flying planes, Debka Weekly has discovered that Russia has secretly deployed 2 missile systems, the Panzer 21E and Pekora M2S, which are designed to attack low-flying aircraft. Last Monday, Netanyahu expressed hope that he will soon meet with Putin. But on the same day, Moscow announced its delivery of 3 battalion sets of S-300 air defense systems to Syria. Netanyahu also announced that Israel would not give up its permanent sovereignty over the Golan. He expressed confidence that President Putin understands Israel's need to maintain sovereignty in the region. On Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov refuted Netanyahu by stating that the status of the Golan is determined by the resolutions of the UN Security Council. Changing the status would be a direct violation of these resolutions. Intelligence advisors have warned Netanyahu that Putin does not intend to honor his promises when it comes to Israel's security. Netanyahu, however, believes he can convince Putin to stand up for Israel on issues of national security. Advisors state that Putin will never compromise on his country's strategic interests for the sake of Israel's. The U.S. did not interfere when Russia sent S-300 air defense missiles to Syria. The head of the U.S. Central Command, General Joseph Votel, called the missile deliveries a needless escalation, but did not do anything to stop it from taking place. Netanyahu understands the heightened risk to Israeli jets since the Russian S-300 and other cutting-edge air defense systems have entered Syria. Iran is also using this time to ship precision missiles to Syria in order to replace the supplies that Israel destroyed. Last Monday, former Russian ambassador to Damascus, Alexander Zotov, stated that Israel needs to understand the risk in carrying out operations without coordination with Russia. Moscow is now working on a new plan that puts Israel in a different position in regards to Putin's overall strategy. Putin wants to make sure that Israel is working on his terms before discussing military coordination with Israel. Last Monday, China's Vice President Wang Qishan arrived in Israel, along with Chinese senior officials from 13 ministries and many business leaders. Wang is the highest-ranking Chinese visitor to visit Israel in over a decade. Wang, along with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, headed a meeting of the China-Israel Joint Committee on Innovation Cooperation, which was established in 2014. Despite increased trade between China and Israel, some Israeli authorities are concerned about a possible Chinese economic invasion. Beijing's political strategy is summed up by the motto, "First the civilian, then the military." Whenever China has been involved in building commercial ports around the world, it was the first stage in their attempts to transform the country into a jumping-off base for China's control of major strategic waterways. In addition, there's some growing concern about Chinese investments in the high-tech industries in Israel. Prior to this year, Chinese investments in Israeli startups were around $6.5 billion, which was 12% of the capital raised by the companies between 2015 and 2017. This year, high-ranking Chinese officials are visiting Israel more often and setting up the infrastructure for larger transactions. In August, the Chinese Minister of Science and Technology, Wang Zhigang, claimed that his government believes innovative technology drives the development of the modern economy, and China's door is always open to Israeli technology. The Trump administration is also discussing the escalating ties between Israel and China now that the U.S. is battling a trade war with the country. Many are concerned that Israel's highly advanced weaponry will get into the hands of China's military. The Pentagon fears that the artificial intelligence programs developed in Israel, which China is acquiring, will be incorporated into the latest models of Chinese arms that threaten the U.S. and its allies. At the same time, the concerns in Washington and Jerusalem could be disproportionate. Beijing's investments in Israel are small compared with the sums it is sinking in many other countries. That's it for the compilation edition of the Debka File. We'll be back with you next week for exclusive news, insight, and analysis from the Middle East. Thanks for watching.